Everyone, Bitcoin is at an all-time high these last 24 hours. That means it's the highest price as measured in US dollars that it has ever been in the entire history of Bitcoin. That's a record. That's an all-time high. That's an amazing achievement. So let's talk about what that means and a variety of different things. Okay, first thing, why is it at an all-time high? Well, the price climbed up directly correlating to the price, or sorry, to the probability that Donald Trump would win in the election yesterday. And as that probability climbed up, so did the price of Bitcoin because there's a strong perception out there, which is accurate, that a Donald Trump presidency is much better for the economy and much better for Bitcoin because Kamala Harris had been, and the Biden administration specifically, had been openly hostile to Bitcoin and digital assets. Now, Bitcoin can survive anything. So Bitcoin could have certainly survived a Kamala Harris presidency, but it's obviously more favorable if you have a more favorable regulatory environment. And if instead of trying to dump all the Bitcoins that the US government owns, which is about 1% of the total supply, if instead the US government is turning that into a strategic Bitcoin reserve, which is what Donald Trump had promised to do, and that would result in other countries following suit, buying up Bitcoin and turning it into their own strategic Bitcoin reserve to help back their own local currencies. So big difference between what Kamala Harris and Donald Trump plan to do with regard to Bitcoin. And obviously Republicans swept everything. So the presidency, the U.S. Senate, the U.S. House, Republicans basically won everything, including the former chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, Sherrod Brown, who had previously blocked the creation of clear rules of the road for cryptocurrencies. He got beat yesterday as well. So basically, crypto won at the ballot box yesterday overwhelmingly. I mean, just an absolute unbelievable. I mean, just swept the field. So it was incredible. I mean, just absolute victory for cryptocurrency and digital assets yesterday. So as a result of that, Bitcoin is sitting at $75,500, which is the highest it's ever been. So a couple things. One is it's still a good time to buy Bitcoin. Absolutely. In my opinion, it is a fantastic time. In fact, the risk reward profile is better probably than it's ever been in the entirety of Bitcoin's life. So let's talk about that. How could that even possibly be the case? The answer is because investments are a risk reward trade off. And if somebody said, hey, Joel, here's my options. I can either buy Bitcoin at $69,000 before the presidential election with all of the uncertainty of how it's going to turn out, or I can buy it after with the certainty of a Donald Trump win at 75,000. I would say, well, it's actually on a risk adjusted basis. Your risk profile is, significantly reduced. Your upside is only reduced by $6,000 per coin, which is whatever that is, however many percent that is out of $70,000. Let's call it 70. 7,000 would be 10%. So you're only losing about 7 to 10% of your investment upside in exchange for a larger than 7 to 10% reduction in the risk associated with holding Bitcoin, based on who's in control of Congress and the White House and all of that. So on a risk reward basis, yes, your reward for buying Bitcoin now is a bit less, call it 10% less than what you could have bought Bitcoin for before the election. Actually, it's not quite 10%. It's like, 7%, 8%, whatever that is. So yeah, your upside is 7 or 8% less, which is not an upside I would ever want to sacrifice. But your risk is a lot more than just 7 or 8% reduced. Your risk associated with Bitcoin is probably reduced by 10 or 15%. So if your upside is reduced by 7 or 8%, but your risk is reduced by 10 or 15%, then on a risk adjusted basis, meaning the risk reward balance is actually more favorable if you're buying Bitcoin now. Again, assuming you care about things like risk. Someone like me is very high. I guess I have a high tolerance for risk. So somebody like me is always going to buy at the lowest price I can get Bitcoin, which is the times when everyone else is terrified. But that still makes it an even better risk reward investment when people are not terrified, when, things are just as safe and as secure as they can be, which right now is right now for Bitcoin. So some other thoughts. One second. So number one, do I still think it's now is a fantastic time to buy Bitcoin? Absolutely. If you still have money that is not in Bitcoin, that could be in Bitcoin, or that you were considering putting in Bitcoin, or that you think, this is the last of what I got, I'm pushing it all in now, then I would say, yes, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I would do. And it's exactly what I have done with all available cash, like all in. Okay. So, first, so is now a good time to buy Bitcoin? In my opinion, yes, absolutely yes. If I could choose between all in versus, a little bit here and there over the course of a series of months or a series of weeks, or, a little bit at a time over 6 months or a year, I would just put it in all in right now. Like, I would not mess around at all with trying to, certainly don't try to time the market. You're never going to time the market. That's a fool's errand every time. But whatever I plan to put on in Bitcoin over the next year, I would put it in, all of it, right now. So that's, is now still a good time? Yes. If I were investing additional capital beyond the 2023 tax return that I just invested, it was either late last week or early this week. I guess it was late last week, which is the last sort of larger purchase that I made was, I don't know, Thursday, Friday last week, whatever it was. Anyway, I would put it all in now. I would not wait. I would not spread it out. I would not dollar cost average. I would just buy as much Bitcoin as I possibly could right now and get my total Bitcoin exposure as high as I possibly could. So that's what I would do. All right. So what does the future of Bitcoin feel like from here forward? A bunch of stuff. One, this is a really fun time. So the price tends to go very aggressively once it breaks a new all-time high. And let me explain why that is, because it's helpful to understand. Give me a second again. My throat keeps getting dry here. One second. All right. So as of the last 24 hours in the world of Bitcoin, we are in a phase called price discovery. The reason it's called price discovery is because nobody knows how high it could go from here, because nobody owns Bitcoin that they bought for more than they bought it for right now. So every price below an all-time high, there is someone somewhere who is down on their investment. So the last 7 months, when we've been bouncing around most of the time between uh 55,000 and 70,000 a coin, every time the price would rise, someone would be there that wanted to sell Bitcoin and therefore keep the price from going up. So you get somebody that, buys it at $70,000, then they get stuck holding on to it for 6 months. They don't like the ride. They want to get off the roller coaster. This asset is not for them. And as soon as it hits $70,000, they're like, well, phew, I can finally just get out at the price I paid. Like, I'm out, I'm out. This was not for me. So at every price below an all-time high, you have people in that position. People who are just waiting for the price to get back to the price they paid so they can get off the roller coaster without a loss. And what happens is you end up in the phase we are right now, which is called price discovery, because there is nobody in the entire world. This is the big deal. There is nobody in the entire world that bought Bitcoin for a price higher than the price exactly right now, except sometime in the last 24 hours. So 100% of people who have bought Bitcoin prior to the last 24 hours are up on their investment in the entire world. What that means is anybody who has wanted to get off the Bitcoin train and has just been waiting for the price to get to a price they paid for it, 100% of those people can get off right now. And as of the last week or so, they could get off at whatever price they paid. If they got in at 72,000, they didn't like the ride, you could get out yesterday or the day before at 72,000. You can get off the train. So right now, there is nobody who owns Bitcoin that is waiting to get off at the price they paid, because we are above the price that anyone has ever paid for Bitcoin. Okay. So what that means is there's not a lot of resistance. Now, of course, there are some people who are like, wow, as soon as it gets to 80,000, I'll sell. As soon as it gets to 85,000, I'll sell. There are always people selling at different price levels. And every time I use my Coinbase debit card, technically, I'm selling like 20 bucks a Bitcoin at Chick-fil-A or whatever it is. So there's always selling pressure. There's not the same sort of major selling pressure that comes from having to, to sort of clear out all the people who got on the train and then realized they didn't want to be on it. So that part is behind us, which means typically for about the next year, we have sort of a wide open field. Now, that means Bitcoin will still go up and down on its way up. It's not going to stop going down periodically. In fact, you'll notice right before the election, we had 6 days in a row where Bitcoin's price was down. 6 days in a row. So, yeah, if your stomach couldn't handle that and you sold, well, you sold at 60 mid 60,000s. And here we are at 70 above 75,000. So you missed out on 15-20% upside, whatever it is. So but anyway, so typically the price can run pretty aggressively higher because it's not constantly running into these barriers of people who are trying to get off the train at the price they paid. Because from here on forward, there is nobody that is waiting for a price to get off that is the price they paid, because there's nobody that is not, there's nobody underwater anymore. Now, long term, there's still bear markets, which means down markets. It's still likely that sometime, let's call it 2026 or, fourth quarter of 2025, 12 months from now, probably 12 months from now, the market's going to turn, the euphoria is going to subside. The price is going to be crazy. Some people are going to want to get off the train. It's going to trigger a cascade of people wanting to get off the train. And that's what leads to a bear market, which is, again, my latest prediction is that the price runs up to $280,000 a coin over the next 12 months. And then it drops down to 140,000 a coin. Well, it's still like double the price today. So if you're waiting for the next to buy Bitcoin, the next drop, in my opinion, is still going to be the lowest it's going to get. It's probably twice the price today. So again, I don't know that. It's my best guess. So I think people waiting to buy on the next dip are going to be sorely disappointed. There's going to be dips, but I think the dips are all going to be two prices higher than today, which is why I'm saying if I could put, all in right now as I am, I would be all in right now as I am, because, why wait for a dip that's higher than today's price that you're never going to be able to time properly anyway? So anyway, great time in Bitcoin, smooth sailing ahead. There should be a very aggressive upward price action. One of these days, the U.S. will adopt obviously probably after Donald Trump is actually sworn in, but will turn the U.S. holdings of Bitcoin into a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I anticipate other countries will be forced to follow suit, because nobody wants to watch, the United States be the only one that's sitting on a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So that should result in some game theory where other countries try to do the same. Michael Saylor at MicroStrategy announced that his company is going to try to buy $42 billion more of Bitcoin, which is about twice what they already own. They own probably in the ballpark of 21 million dollars of Bitcoin right now, or billion, sorry, $21 billion, which is about 1% of the total supply. 1.2%. I think they own 1.2% of the total supply of Bitcoin. So they're going to try to buy another percentage point or so of the entire Bitcoin supply over the next 3 years, or however much they can afford as the price runs away from them. So everything in Bitcoin world is fantastic. I mean, I cannot think of a single thing in Bitcoin world that is not super positive, and all of the big money takes some time to show up. So, we're sitting here at 75,500, and the people on Wall Street that decided, hey, things are looking good for Bitcoin, let's allocate a lot more money to it. Well, that's going to take days or weeks or months for them to go get approval and all that sort of stuff. And all that bodes very well for Bitcoin over the near term. So anyway, I think we're in a great spot for Bitcoin. Never a better time to buy Bitcoin. Never a better time to hold Bitcoin. You've already bought, and I just think the future is very bright. Give me one thought. I have one more thought, but give me a second. Okay, the last thing I have is Bitcoin is not for everybody. If you cannot handle the volatility of Bitcoin, the ups and down swings, now's a great time to get off the train. Not because I don't think Bitcoin's going to quadruple in price, but because if you can't handle it, 100% of people who cannot handle the volatility of Bitcoin can get out right now where their investment is up. Now, do I recommend that? Of course not. I think Bitcoin is the best investment in the entire planet. And I think now is the best risk adjusted time. Sorry, I ate a bunch of blackberries and blueberries and raspberries right before I left. And I sucked some seed of one of them into my lungs, it feels like. Anyway, um, So, so anyway, I think now's a fantastic time to buy Bitcoin. I would never recommend anyone ever sell Bitcoin. If you cannot sleep at night because of your Bitcoin allocation, then adjust the size of your Bitcoin allocation until you can sleep at night. And if you can't handle the incredibly small probability that something cataclysmic happens and something bad happens to your Bitcoin, well, great. Right now's the time to get off the train. Everyone historically who has ever gotten off the Bitcoin train has regretted it. Everybody's different. Not everybody likes the roller coaster ride of if Space Mountain at Disney World is not for you, then you can get off Space Mountain right now with being up on your investment. What am I planning to do? I wish Bitcoin was more volatile. If it was more volatile, it would mean there's even more upside. As Michael Saylor says, it will work even better as day-to-day transactional money, but it will not be nearly as good as an investment vehicle for the future. So, in my opinion, the greater the volatility of Bitcoin, the better. The more wild the roller coaster, the better, because those two things are directly correlated to economic upside. And I can handle the volatility. And if I can handle the volatility, I want it to be as high as possible because it means the total economic potential upside of Bitcoin is that much higher. If your Bitcoin allocation does not let you sleep at night, well, pare it back to a point where it does let you sleep at night. In my case, I'm at 97% of my liquid assets in Bitcoin. 97%. That means I only have 3% of my liquid assets in something other than Bitcoin, and that 3% is the combination of stocks, bonds, and US dollar cash, which includes, working balances, which I keep low in bank accounts because I try to keep the if I need to pay a babysitter or something. But anyway, all that to say, my comfort level is 97% Bitcoin. That's my comfort level, and I sleep like a baby. In fact, the thought that regularly haunts me is, why do I have 3% of my assets in anything other than Bitcoin? Like, I regularly think, should I go ahead and take maybe a third of what's left? Should I take my Bitcoin allocation up to 98%? Should I take it up to 99%? And, it's just, I got a wife and 4 kids, so responsible thing as a husband and father of 4 seems to be a Bitcoin allocation of 97%. That's my comfort level, and I sleep like a baby. And the only thing I worry about is I don't have enough Bitcoin. If your allocation is 20 or 30 or 50% and you do not sleep well at night, it is absolutely valuable to sleep well at night. So, your Bitcoin allocation should be as high as you can possibly stomach. And, that's just my opinion. So none of this is investment advice. This is not legal text, regulatory, financial advice. This is none of that. This is back and forth, up and down between 55,000 and 70,000. Congrats to you up here at 75,500. Enjoy the view. You deserve it. Good job. It's, uh, it's awesome. It's awesome that you held through the ups and downs. You had the courage, you had the conviction, and good for you. You deserve it. And exciting and super awesome times should be ahead. And anyway, congrats. Great time to be in the world of Bitcoin. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks.